So, I want to start out by telling you a true story. And please forgive me if you've heard me tell this story before. I did check my records, and the last time I told this story in public, I was at least 50 miles away from here, and it was 12 years ago. So that means the statute of limitations has run on repeating a story in a sermon. So here's the story. Back in 1977, there was a German tourist named Edwin Cruz who spoke no English. And he was traveling for the first time to the United States. He was coming from Germany, and his destination was San Francisco. And the plane had a long layover refueling stop in Bangor. They let everyone off the plane for a while, and Mr. Cruz got off with everyone else and went through customs. Unfortunately, he had not understood the announcements that they made on the plane, so he thought he'd actually arrived in California. Poor Edwin, he left the airport and he started to sightsee around what he thought was San Francisco. Now, amazingly, this went on for a couple of days until someone he met finally figured out the mistake. And he was even eventually interviewed by the Bangor Daily News, and he became something of a local celebrity. Some folks who were at the chapel service told me they actually remembered this story from back then in 1977. I first read this story in a book written by Matt Warford, who was president of Bangor Theological Seminary when I was a student there in the early 1990s. And Matt wrote, "Can you imagine those few days as Mr. Cruz walked around Bangor trying to fit what he was seeing into the image of San Francisco in his head? As he walked past the local Chinese restaurant, he must have thought, Chinatown's not as big as I thought it was going to be. And he may have wondered why the famous streetcars weren't running. When a local reporter asked, wasn't there one moment when you suspected you weren't in San Francisco? Mr. Cruz replied, well, I was a bit disappointed by the bridge. I love this story because I know what it's like sometimes to need a reality check. It's really good every once in a while to check in, to make sure to see if what's playing on the movie screen inside your own head matches what's really going on out in the world. Like that movie that played in my head a lot when I was a teenager. The one where I was constantly wondering if the people around me really liked me. If I'd ever be good enough. If I'd ever fit in or figure out what I was supposed to do with my life. Maybe you've seen that movie? Or there's the one about how I'm sure that the sad or scared feelings I'm having now are never going to go away. And I begin to wonder, is this just who I am? A person who's sad or scared? There are lots of these movies, and thank God I'm not prone to watching all of them, but I'm familiar with most of them. There's that one that maybe you've seen, the one where the person who dies with the most toys wins. There's that one where if one person wins, somebody else has to lose. Or there's the one about how no one will love you if you're not beautiful enough, or if you're not thin enough, or if you're not white enough, or fill in your own adjective enough. You know, there are millions of variations. And a lot of these movies, these false narratives that get into our heads, they do tend to play at 3 in the morning when you can't sleep anyway. By comparison, Mr. Cruz's mistake seems relatively harmless. I mean, at least he got to see Bangor. One of my favorite writers, Kathleen Norris, once said that if she gets up in the morning, she really just can't bear to read the morning newspaper, can't bear the news of the world anymore. She tells herself that reading the Psalms is keeping up with the news. I think the Psalms also work as a good substitute for those false narratives that run in our heads a lot of the time. Because somewhere in the Psalms, you can find just about any human emotion you can imagine. Gratitude, love, joy, hope, but also sadness, grief, regret, loneliness, nostalgia, and anger. There's plenty of anger in there, including anger at God for not preventing bad things from happening or for not fixing them right away when they do. The thing about the 23rd Psalm is that it's so familiar. We've all heard it so many times. There's a risk of not really hearing the story that's behind it, the astounding depth of that story. Because it's the story of a people who had experienced trauma and tragedy. A couple of generations before these Psalms were written down, their nation had been conquered. The temple, where they believed God resided, God lived in the temple, had been utterly destroyed. They'd been dragged off into exile, and returned to a land that was ruined and impoverished. So the first people who sang these songs as part of worship, pretty much everybody was a recently arrived refugee, having to reinvent everything, including what does home feel like? And how do we worship God if God is even still around? They used these songs, not only to praise God, but to set their pain and their fear and their longing squarely at God's feet. Some songs are pure cries for help. Others express the worshippers' exasperation with God for remaining hidden and silent. 500 years after they were first written down, Jesus' last words from the cross came from the psalm right before this one, Psalm 22. My God, why have you forsaken me? But the 23rd Psalm is from a group of psalms called the Psalms of Trust. It's not a trust that comes cheap. It doesn't come easily. The psalmist knows about the silence of God. The psalmist knows about the hiddenness of God and yet still seeks for God. Just to ask the question, where is God? Is the beginning of trust. It assumes the possibility of an answer. It's the start of a quest, and you don't go out questing for something unless you think there's at least a possibility there's something worthy to be found, and that it can actually somehow be found. For the seeker, the 23rd Psalm is a kind of roadmap for that quest. In Hebrew, the psalm starts and ends with the same word, the name of God, Yahweh. Yahweh is my shepherd at the beginning, and at the end I shall dwell all the days of my life in the house of Yahweh. The name defines the outer edges of this map. We are inside God's realm. We are held in God's arms. As we move from the outer edges toward the center of the psalm, we start to see contrasting images from nature and from human culture. So they show us that nothing is outside of God's realm. We find the shepherd, we find the sheep, we find the still waters and the green pastures, the shadowed valleys, all the beauties and dangers of the wilderness, death itself. Everything in nature is encompassed by God. Then we see some important images from human culture. We see a cup, we see a table, we see a rod and a staff, we see the oil that was used in ancient times to anoint a king or to welcome an honored guest. Everything human is encompassed by God. Even enemies are encompassed by God. They are picture. They are not outside of God's transforming power. The enemies might be real people who really want to destroy us, and the ancient Hebrews certainly knew about that. But we can also think of the enemies as anything, any system, any addiction, any false narrative that is trying to keep us from taking our rightful place at the feast of life, the table prepared by God for God's beloved. So we follow the map, right to the center of the psalm. And right there, we find the one true thing, the most important thing that the psalmist had discovered on his quest. Precisely 26 words in Hebrew from the start of the psalm, the first word of which is God, and 26 words in Hebrew from the end of the psalm, the last word of which is God, are these words: for you are with me. For you are with me. For you are with me. The God we seek is everywhere and every when seeking us. No matter how disoriented we are, no matter if we don't speak the language, or we didn't understand the announcements and we got off at the wrong stop for a while in life, God is there with us, no matter where you are on life's journey. By the time we get to the end of this psalm, the other edge of the map, the whole meaning of the phrase, the house of the Lord, has been transformed. It's not a building in Jerusalem that can be burned down. God's dwelling place, God's presence is everywhere in every moment, and we're living inside of it already. Now, what does all this have to do with our children, with our youth here in the church? To me, the greatest thing we can do for our children is to give them this gift, a map for navigating through the world, now and for the rest of their lives. It's not so much a belief or a creed to hand to them. It's not an instruction book or a set of rules or a graduation certificate. We all know those are things that can be lost along the way, or dropped, or set down. The gift I want our children to have is more a way of being. It's an inner trust, a spiritual resilience that will dwell in them as they travel and quest through what we know will be their own green pastures and their own shadowed valleys. And I have to tell you, in my experience, most children already know about those valleys. Given what's in the news every day, the world that they have to navigate, it's the least we can do to give them a trustworthy map and show them how to use it. The paradox is that the truth that's there at the heart of the 23rd Psalm, which, by the way, is the truth that's at the heart of Jesus' message, it's hard to describe in words. And yet the smallest child knows it when they feel it. Maybe that's why Jesus used parables and actions more than words, and why he said the littlest children already belong to the realm of God. For the past 2 years, since my husband died, every Thursday night I take my granddaughter Ivy, sheep number 2, to the Center for Grieving Children. It's just a wonderful place. There are children there as young as 3, up to older teenagers, adults, young adults. They go off into their groups. They might go to what's called the volcano room, which is a padded room that's safe and supervised, but you can go in there and just let it all out. Your rage, your tears. You can be silly. I often wish we could build one here at the church like that. It's kind of a physical manifestation of the Psalms when you think about it. Anyway, at the end of the evening, all the small groups get back together and we stand in a big circle and we hold hands And the last words every Thursday night that are said are, take the strength of the circle with you, because love really counts. I want my grandchildren and all of our children to feel this church holding their hands, giving them a strength they can take with them. And when they grow up and they leave here, I want them to know in their bones that the God who is love is with them all the time. I want them to know that even in those moments where you just can't believe in God, God is still there, believing in you. Once Israel realized that, they were able to rebuild after the devastation. They wrote down those Psalms, and we're still reading and singing them 2,500 years later. When you know that there's nowhere you can go from God's love, you know one true thing. You know a true thing that makes so much else possible. No matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you, just as you are right now, are in God's house. And God is with you.